January 2nd arrives without spectacle, without fireworks or fanfare. Yet it carries a weight that only the soul can feel. It is not merely the second page of a calendar, not just another morning to be rushed through or overlooked. January 2nd is a sacred threshold, a quiet doorway suspended between what has been and what is still unfolding. It stands patiently, not demanding that you hurry or perform, but inviting you to pause long enough to recognize where you are. This day whispers rather than shouts, reminding you that some of the most powerful moments in life arrive softly, almost unnoticed, asking only for your awareness. There is something deeply holy about the mornings that follow celebration. The noise has faded, the resolutions have been spoken, the promises written with hopeful hands. Now comes the quiet, and it is here, in this stillness, that God so often works most deeply. God is not rushed by time nor pressured by expectation. He moves with intention, shaping hearts in moments when the world is not watching. January 2nd becomes sacred, not because of what it demands, but because of what it allows. Space to breathe, space to listen, space to simply be. This morning invites you into presence, into the simple miracle of breath moving in and out of your lungs, into the awareness that you are still here, still standing, still becoming. Survival itself becomes a form of praise on this day. You made it through yesterday with all its weight, its joy, its grief, its unfinished business. And now, without explanation or ceremony, you have been given another dawn. That alone is evidence of grace at work. God did not bring you this far to abandon you in the quiet. January 2nd teaches us that beginnings do not have to be loud to be real. They do not need declarations or applause to carry power. There is honesty in beginning gently, in allowing yourself to move forward without pressure to prove anything. This is not the day of grand plans or flawless resolve. It is the day of small, sincere intention. The day you stand at the doorway of possibility and admit, I am here, I am willing. And that willingness is enough. Stillness is not emptiness, it is readiness. In the quiet of this morning, distractions loosen their grip, and the soul can finally speak without interruption. God's voice is often clearest when the world grows silent. When expectations step back and the heart listens without defense. January 2nd offers that sacred silence, the kind that does not judge your pace or compare your progress. It meets you where you are and honors the journey that brought you here. This threshold does not erase yesterday. It does not deny the pain you have carried or the lessons you have learned. Instead, it acknowledges them with compassion and invites you to step forward lighter. Not because the past no longer matters, but because you no longer need to carry it all at once. Beginning gently is an act of wisdom. It is trusting that growth does not require force, only faithfulness. January 2nd stands as a reminder that divine timing is rarely dramatic. God unfolds transformation in layers, not leaps. In moments of awareness, in breaths taken slowly, in quiet mornings where the heart opens without fear. This day holds quiet power because it honors the process. It invites you to cross the threshold, not with urgency, but with reverence. To begin not with pressure, but with peace. And in doing so, it teaches you that the most meaningful transformations often begin in silence. When no one is watching, and the soul finally feels safe enough to become. When the noise fades, something rare and sacred is revealed. The world teaches us to associate significance with volume, to believe that what matters most must be loud, visible, and affirmed by others. Yet faith grows in a different environment. Faith is not born in the roar of crowds or sustained by constant activity. It is shaped in stillness, formed in moments when distractions fall away and the soul is left alone with its truth. Quiet faith does not demand attention. It simply listens. God has always spoken most clearly in silence. Not because his voice is weak, but because it is intimate. Silence creates space for listening, and listening requires humility. In the quiet, we are no longer performing or proving. We are simply present. Without the pressure to impress or explain, the heart relaxes its defenses, and honesty rises. It is there, in that unguarded space, that God's guidance often emerges, not as commands shouted from the heavens, but as gentle nudges, subtle clarity, and deep knowing that settles into the spirit. Quiet devotion carries a power that public declarations cannot replicate. It is the faith practiced when no one is watching, the prayer whispered rather than announced, the moment of surrender that does not seek recognition. This kind of devotion is steady and sincere. It does not rely on emotion alone, nor does it fade when excitement passes. It is built on consistency, on showing up day after day even when nothing dramatic seems to happen. God honors this faith because it is rooted in relationship rather than performance. Performance-driven faith is exhausting. It pressures the soul to appear strong, certain, and unwavering at all times. It leaves little room for doubt, struggle, or growth. Quiet faith releases that burden. It allows questions to exist without shame. It allows weakness to be acknowledged without fear of rejection. In silence, faith becomes real, stripped of polish and pretense. It is no longer about how it looks, but about what it sustains. When the noise fades, we are confronted with ourselves. This confrontation can feel uncomfortable at first. Silence brings thoughts we have avoided and emotions we have numbed. Yet God does not fear this discomfort. He meets us in it. He does not rush us through the process or demand instant resolution. Instead, He sits with us, guiding gently, allowing truth to surface at its own pace. Breakthroughs often begin here, not in sudden miracles, but in slow realizations that reshape how we see, how we trust, how we live. Faith formed without applause is resilient. It does not collapse when affirmation disappears. It does not depend on validation from others to remain strong. This faith knows how to stand alone because it was built in private moments of encounter. It remembers the quiet assurances received in stillness, the peace that arrived without explanation, the strength that emerged when surrender replaced striving. These experiences anchor the soul when external circumstances fluctuate. God's deepest work often goes unnoticed by the world. While we wait for visible change, He is working internally, refining character, reshaping perspective, healing wounds that cannot be rushed. Silence is the environment where this work flourishes. Like roots growing unseen beneath the soil, faith deepens in quiet places long before it bears visible fruit. Noise demands immediate results. Silence teaches patience and trust in the unseen. In a world saturated with constant input, choosing quiet becomes an act of courage. It is a decision to listen rather than react, to trust rather than control. Quiet faith does not reject action, but it grounds action in wisdom. It moves not from impulse, but from alignment. When the soul learns to listen, it begins to recognize God's voice, not only in stillness, but even amid chaos. Ultimately, quiet faith reminds us that God is not competing for our attention. He is waiting for our availability. When the noise fades, the invitation becomes clear. Sit, listen, be honest. Trust that in the stillness, God is speaking, and what He is forming within you there will sustain you far longer than any moment of applause ever could. There comes a moment in every journey when holding on becomes heavier than letting go. The hands grow tired from gripping fear, regret, and the illusion of control. We tell ourselves that if we just hold tighter, manage better, plan harder, we can protect ourselves from disappointment. Yet life gently reveals a different truth. What we cling to most tightly often weighs us down the most. Surrender arrives in that realization, not as defeat, but as wisdom. Surrender is often misunderstood as weakness, as giving up or losing ground. In truth, surrender is one of the strongest acts a soul can make. It is the courage to admit that you cannot carry everything alone, and the humility to trust that you were never meant to. When you surrender, you are not abandoning responsibility. You are realigning it. You are placing what exceeds your strength into hands far more capable than your own. This act does not diminish you. It frees you. Fear thrives on control. It convinces us that uncertainty is dangerous and that letting go will lead to loss. But fear is a poor guide. It narrows vision and tightens the heart. Releasing fear does not mean pretending it never existed. It means acknowledging its presence and choosing not to be governed by it. When fear is surrendered, courage finds space to grow. Courage that is quiet, steady, and resilient. Courage that trusts even when the path ahead is unclear. Regret is another burden we often carry unnecessarily. We revisit old decisions, replay past mistakes, and punish ourselves with hindsight. Regret cannot change what has already happened. It can only steal energy from the present. Surrendering regret is an act of compassion toward yourself. It is recognizing that you did the best you could with the understanding you had at the time. Grace does not ask you to live chained to yesterday. It invites you to learn from it and move forward lighter. Control often disguises itself as responsibility. We believe that if we loosen our grip, everything will fall apart. Yet control is a weight no human was designed to bear. When we release it, we discover that life does not collapse. Instead, it opens. Possibilities emerge that could not exist under rigidity. God does not force doors open. He waits for willingness. Open hands signal readiness. They allow guidance to be received, help to be accepted, and grace to flow freely. Surrender is preparation. Before doors open externally, alignment happens internally. The heart must be ready to receive what the future holds. Letting go clears space. Space for clarity. Space for peace. Space for new direction. A cluttered heart struggles to move forward. Surrender simplifies. It asks, what truly needs to come with me, and what must I lay down? This discernment is essential for the next season. There is humility in surrender, and humility is fertile ground for growth. It quiets the ego and softens resistance. It allows learning to replace defensiveness. In this posture, you are no longer fighting life. You are cooperating with it. Trust begins to replace tension. Faith becomes active, not passive. It moves forward without demanding certainty. Surrender is not a one-time event. It is a daily choice. Each morning offers the opportunity to pick the burdens back up or leave them where they belong. Each decision to release control, fear, or regret strengthens freedom. And in that freedom, you begin to move differently, with less urgency, with more clarity, with a deeper sense of peace. Letting go is not loss. It is alignment. It positions you to receive what you could not hold before. As your hands open, your heart follows. And in that openness, you discover that surrender was never the end of strength. It was the beginning of it. Disappointment has a way of making us question everything. We replay moments where doors did not open, opportunities slipped away, or plans unraveled despite our best efforts. In those moments, it is easy to assume failure, to believe we were not good enough, prepared enough, or worthy enough. Yet grace tells a different story. Grace does not operate on perfection. It moves through honesty, humility, and trust. It meets us not at our strongest, but at our most surrendered. Grace is not earned by flawless performance. It is received. This truth brings relief to a weary heart. You do not have to get everything right for God to guide you forward. You do not have to prove your value through constant achievement. Grace recognizes effort, yes, but it also understands limitation. It honors growth over polish. When we accept this, we stop striving to control outcomes and begin trusting the process unfolding before us. Closed doors often feel like rejection, but many are actually protection. What looks like denial in the moment can later reveal itself as mercy. Some paths carry harm we cannot yet see. Some opportunities demand sacrifices that would cost us more than we realize. God, in His wisdom, sees beyond the immediate desire and into the long-term impact. When a door closes, it is not always a sign to push harder. Sometimes it is an invitation to pause, reflect, and redirect. Redirection requires patience. It asks us to slow down when everything in us wants immediate resolution. Waiting can feel uncomfortable, especially when uncertainty lingers. Yet patience creates clarity. In the space between closed and open doors, we learn discernment. We begin to understand what aligns with our values and what merely appeals to our urgency. This waiting season is not wasted time. It is preparation in disguise. Humility plays a vital role in recognizing new paths. When pride insists on a specific outcome, it becomes difficult to see alternatives. Humility softens perspective. It allows us to ask better questions, to listen more closely, to consider directions we previously dismissed. Often, the truest paths are revealed not through force, but through openness. They appear when we release the need to be right and embrace the willingness to be led. Grace heals disappointment by reframing the narrative. Instead of viewing closed doors as personal failure, grace invites us to see them as part of a larger story still being written. Each redirection refines discernment. Each pause strengthens trust. Over time, patterns emerge. We recognize how certain detours saved us, how certain delays matured us, how certain endings created space for beginnings we could not have imagined. Trust grows through experience. The more we look back and see how guidance unfolded despite confusion, the more confident we become in moving forward without full clarity. Grace teaches us that understanding is not a prerequisite for obedience. Sometimes the next step becomes clear only after we take it. This requires faith that is active and responsive, not passive or rigid. New paths often arrive quietly. They may not resemble the original plan. They may feel unfamiliar at first. But when they align with peace, rather than pressure, with growth rather than fear, they carry confirmation within them. Grace guides gently. It does not rush or coerce. It leads with assurance, not anxiety. In the end, grace reminds us that life is not a straight line measured by success alone. It is a journey shaped by guidance, correction, and compassion. Closed doors are not the end of the story. They are markers of care along the way. And as we learn to trust grace over perfection, we discover that every redirection has been leading us closer to where we were meant to be all along. Every new day arrives carrying more than time. It carries invitation. An invitation to step forward not because everything is clear, but because something within you is ready. Courage is often misunderstood as confidence or certainty, But true courage rarely waits for either. It moves despite unanswered questions. It takes the next step even when the path ahead is partially hidden. This is the courage that transforms lives, not loud bravery, but steady willingness. Moving forward without certainty requires trust that guidance will meet you in motion. Faith was never meant to be static. It grows as it moves, strengthens as it acts, and clarifies as it unfolds. Waiting until everything makes sense can keep the soul frozen in place. But when you take a step with what you know now, more becomes known. Direction often reveals itself after obedience, not before it. Each new day offers the chance to release old narratives. Stories of limitation, failure, or fear do not have to define what comes next. You are not bound to repeat yesterday simply because it is familiar. Renewal begins when you allow your story to be rewritten. This does not erase the past. It redeems it. What once felt like loss can become wisdom. What once felt like delay can become preparation. Purpose often emerges from places that once felt empty. Faith in motion looks ordinary from the outside. It appears as small decisions made consistently, choosing hope over despair, choosing kindness over bitterness, choosing trust over control. These choices accumulate. Over time, they reshape direction. You may not notice the change immediately, but movement is happening. Growth is taking place. God works through these quiet steps, weaving intention into daily life. Hope is not naive optimism. It is grounded expectation. It acknowledges reality while believing that it is not finished yet. Hope says, "This is not the end of my story." It allows you to imagine possibilities beyond current circumstances. It lifts the eyes just enough to see forward again. When hope leads, courage follows. As you step into new days, gentleness becomes as important as bravery. There is no need to rush the process or compare your pace to anyone else's. Becoming takes time. Each season unfolds in its own rhythm. Honor where you are while remaining open to where you are going. Growth that is forced rarely lasts. Growth that is nurtured endures. Let this moment close with intention. Intention to move forward with humility. Intention to listen as much as you act. Intention to trust that you are guided even when you cannot see the full picture. A simple daily prayer can anchor this intention. A willingness to be led. A readiness to receive. A courage to respond. Today is not random. It carries divine purpose woven into its ordinary moments. Conversations, decisions, pauses, and steps all matter more than they appear. You do not need to know the entire story to participate in it. You only need to be present for the page you are on as you step forward. Remember that new stories are written one choice at a time. Each day offers fresh ink. Each morning invites you to begin again. Move gently, but do not remain still. Trust the process. Walk with courage. And allow hope to remind you that what lies ahead holds more promise than what lies behind.